Okay, this video is going to go over the Elementalist build, the theme, the gear, all that kind of basic stuff. Now, with all these builds, they're really designed for kind of a casual player. So there's no ascended gear or anything really hard to get, stuff you can buy from the marketplace. Really simple to get equipment. There's nothing super special about it. Some of them are core. Some of them require maybe like one specialization from Path of Fire. So let's just get right into the basic. This is probably my most favorite character of all the ones I play, which is a conditioned fire and bleed-oriented Elementalist. I have tons of videos I'll share with you that show all the PvP and how I play them, all the walkthroughs. But before we get any further, let's just take a look at this basic gear here. This set is a toughness, vitality, condition build set. So a lot of people in Guild Wars 2 play very glass cannon builds using Berserker and things like that. I don't play that way. What I do is my goal is the most amount of damage sustained over time as a dot build, dot someone up, and then live through whatever else is happening. Because in PvP, a lot of times you have 2 and 3 people jumping you. A lot of them are going to CC you, knock you down, kill you. And even in the open world in Path of Fire or anywhere else, you want to be able to survive. Dying is not fun. Going to a PvP map and getting 28 kills and no deaths is fun. I do that often. So with the rune, I have this superior rune, the Berserker in here, which is condition power, 5% damage, 5% condition damage. You can see that right here. So these runes are extremely cheap. You can check the market for it. The reason why I have toughness vitality because I want to get that health around 20k, which you can see right down here, right? So a lot of people will run this 14k to 18k kind of level of health. I can't stand being that low. That low, you are able to be bursted really, really quickly, and a little bit of toughness is going to help a lot. So if you look at these, the power on this, you know, this isn't the biggest power number you could possibly get. You can get much higher with this. You'll see when I go to the PvP area how this build is a little bit different, right? So you also are going to get this 2-minute recharge rate, which is increased. I'll show you that in the build. So these abilities that you have in down here are going to come back up really quickly. Toughness is higher than normal, so you're not really a paper glass cannon. You're much more resilient. Your armor is pretty high. Vitality's fine. It's not awesome, but it's fine. When you get down here to precision, you're not really a high crit. Well, the reason why is what you're trying to do is dot someone up. You're putting a lot of very fast ticking dots that build up conditions really, really quickly on a target like 1, 2, 3, and once those things are applied, they're just going to die. And the rest of the time you can focus on moving, using geometry, line of sight, dodge rolling, getting ready to use defensive cooldowns, pick the next target if no one's messing with you and start dotting them up. So if you've ever played any kind of dot-oriented class in EverQuest or World of Warcraft or anything like that, you kind of get the idea. The goal isn't to stand in one place and start nuking someone. It's a high mobility type of play style. Condition damage increase is pretty high though. This is 1625. It is also increasing. This is a real key thing here is the condition duration. So once you go in there and go boom, boom, boom and apply these conditions, which are going to be mostly burning with a lot of bleeds simultaneously, okay, these are going to last a lot longer. The burning duration is 50% longer. So if you look at some of these things, just look at the signet down here. So the duration on this is burning 13,784 damage. This is I'm in Path of Fire in the open world, right? This is a really short cooldown, 15-second cooldown signet, and I'm a big fan of signets. This is an insta-cast, on-the-move dot, already starting off with 4 stacks, right? 9-second duration. And this is going to be extended by the duration of this right here, this condition duration. So you can just drop that on someone by itself, and also this one right here behind it, which will root someone in place. This will immobilize them for 3¼ seconds, which is a long time. Most of the immobilizations in the game, in PvP especially, are about 1.5 seconds. You'll see with one of my other builds with a warrior who has a condition build, a sword and longbow build, I use a lot of rooting someone in place, dotting them up, and then getting out of there. So when I'm attacking someone in PvP and structured PvP, I'll usually dot them first and see what they do. If they start dodge rolling or wigging out or attack me, then I'll determine whether I need to root them in place. The root will add this additional bleed, which is a longer bleed but not as much damage. These aren't even abilities that I always open up with these. The reason why is when these hit, they're going to hit targets near them. So in group fights, as you can see, this first one hits 5 additional targets. So in PvP and someone's fighting on a node in one of the maps, that makes a really, really big difference. This one's single target. So you'll see in some of my videos, if you watch carefully, I got a keybind for all these. I pop this one a lot on people, even when they're in a down state, just to get a good, solid, nasty finish someone off, kind of a bleed on them. Since I'm not precision oriented, I'm not really worried about losing the passive critical chance, because every time you use a signet, you activate it, usually, unless you have a special build that helps you with that, your passive effect of the signet's going to go away. All right, so let's go through the actual, the last one here is the Signet of Air. The only reason I have this one at all, I never even use it, I probably should, I never use it, is just the passive increase of movement speed. I've used it once or twice in a life or death situation when I rarely get in a situation where I have to use something like this. I want to blind everyone and reduce some incoming damage, but it's not really a great amount of incoming damage reduction. I rarely use this one. The last one I'm using here is this Glyph of Elements. I'll usually use this one with the Earth Elemental or the Fire Elemental. In PvE, the Earth Elemental will taunt, so it's great for taking on little elites and things like that. And of course, this last one is the Healing Glyph. Everyone's got their self-healing thing they use. There's some interesting synergies with the builds where I gain more dodge roll and things like that when I've activated this after I've used a healing ability in PvP. You'll see with the signets on that, they're a little bit different. So now, so this is a scepter. Even though you see a dagger here, I never use this. This is from a long time ago. I just left it in there. This is a dagger focus build. The reason for that is for these abilities here. And I'll walk you through each of these real quickly. The first one's Flame Strike. This is just a 1 second spam. It just goes over and over and over. A lot of the core spammable abilities that are used in the game are like 2 and 3 moves together. So in this situation, it's just going to do the same ability over and over and over. Now it sounds kind of boring, but the ability isn't really about doing the upfront damage. So the upfront damage of Flame Strike is not very much, but it puts a 4.5 second burning condition with secondary burning when it's first applied. So as soon as it applies to someone, you're talking about 2,200 damage right off the bat. Now you can start to imagine what happens here. So just running around doing a bunch of nothing, even if you're just spamming this, you're just stacking and stacking and stacking conditions. And the way conditions work in the game is if you start off at 3 or 4 or 2, this just constantly keep refreshing them, because the moment you put a condition on someone, it starts to decay. So it'll only last a few seconds, and then they'll start decaying. So when you have something like this that's going on 1 second cast time, is keeping the condition count up. So the higher and the higher the condition count goes, the more damage per tick it's going to do. So it's going to build up. So because that time frame is so fast, you can apply 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, get 8 conditions on someone very, very quickly, and they're just going to die unless they have a condition cleanse. But if you're still attacking, you're just reapplying more conditions on them, and they're going to stack up really quickly. So if someone's doing defensive dodge rolls to clear a condition or using a special ability to put on a condition, they're essentially putting those things on cooldown while you're never having anything really put on cooldown. The other abilities are these interesting ones here. These, when you first play the game, if you ever try them, like, oh, it seems kind of weird. Dragon's Tooth is only 4 and 3/4 of a second cooldown. This is an area effect damage ability. It will do, comes up very, very frequently. It's a ground target, so you'll see a lot of times in the PvP maps when I'm running around using this ability, I'm like this. So I've got it activated, ready to go, just looking for someone to apply it to. Once you apply it, though, you can continue to move. This is one thing about this one interesting. Anyone who's played any structured PvP in Guild Wars know the moment that you see an area effect ability applied and you're on the receiving end of it, you see the little red circle on the ground around you. Because this one isn't the biggest, most nastiest hitting one, but it only applies, it's like a blast finisher, right? And it puts this 15-second, really long duration, low damage condition burn on them, right? It's okay if you can use that to cause someone to dodge roll and move out of it while you determine where you want to root them. So it's kind of like a feint. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll like, okay, here's a bunch of people, this is frequently coming down, I'm just going to drop this on them. Let's just do it like this, right? We'll target this build, drop this down on them, and if another player starts to dodge roll out of the way, I can just start dogging them up and do what I want to do. Signet 1 for the fire, the second one for the root in place, and just look at the damage on it. This is just a stupid moa, right? So take a look down here real quickly. So the Dragon's Tooth was that first ability. Remember, this is coming up pretty quickly. You can see the countdown right here. And the good thing about these kind of type countdowns is they're giving you a chance to think about what you should be doing tactically as opposed to getting in someone's face and trying to melee them and spam and all that kind of business. So look at the damage of this. So you first have the ability hitting, right? The first damage that it hit with. And then it has this secondary burning. And this is the Flame Strike, which is the kind of white swing move. You saw me put the swinging the scepter over my head, which applies this like this repeatedly to the target. That's Flame Strike. See that going on? So just using those two abilities, you can see I've already got 6, 7, 8 bleeds on the target. So let's go back to this first combo log here, and let's walk through what else was happening on this first one. So we started with the 14, 17 Dragon's Tooth, a little bit of burning from Dragon's Tooth, then Flame Strike, which is like white swings and wow. Then there's a secondary dot going on because the conditions are counting. So the default burning after the fact is all the purple numbers. The orange numbers are all the initial hit numbers from the ability. So you can see the little flame strike numbers like 298, 305, and the signet's only 263, 341. When someone's playing PvP and they see themselves being hit by like 341 and 263, they don't really care. But they don't see the tick from this other damage, so it's masking it in a way. They have to look at their character portrait to realize they're getting all this burning damage going on them, and most people don't do that. They're thinking about killing someone or moving, or when their cooldown next ability comes up, or someone's attacking them. They're not thinking about, oh gosh, I've got these conditions on me burning away. So even with just those two basic abilities and then putting the signet on here, a signet of fire, a signet of earth, you can see these other effects are burning. Look how quickly they start building and stacking up. So you got 1400, 2900, 2900, 2900. So at that point the thing is just dead. You'll see in some of the PvP videos where if someone's caught unaware and I'm able to use all these other abilities, which I'll walk through in a moment, they'll basically take like 30k damage in about 6 seconds. But you got to be really good and really sharp at it. Let's just take a look at this second ability. That covers Flame Strike and Dragon's Tooth and the two signets, the most basic offensive ones you have to work with. These next two are much more special. This one's called Phoenix. Phoenix looks kind of like this. It's another ground target one. It's compare the radius of this one, okay, to the radius of this one. So this one here, the Dragon's Tooth, all right, which has a long duration burn. This one here has a shorter duration burn with a little bit less damage, but also gives me vigor. So after I cast this, I could dodge roll 2 and 3 times really, really quickly. So this is going to hit 5 targets. This is going to hit 5 targets. This is going to hit 5 targets. So even in a nasty fight where you've got someone trying to burst you down and you go, and even if you just throw the stuff at your feet like this, you're putting a lot of damage on a lot of people simultaneously. And if you have a single target targeted like that, and you put this signet on them as well, that's going to put area effect damage on them as well. You see sometimes in PvP fights, what I'll do is I'll start dotting some up with white swings, start going like this, wait till I get them in range. And they're like, oh, they're going to come for me. Okay, you're going to come for me. I'll put this dot, there's a signet, put this, that rooster in place, put the second one on there, and then they're dead. So if you look at the combat log, let's go down here to the bottom here. So I'm just doing Flame Strike, a little bit of baby burning. This is to see engage a reaction. In this case, we're just using a silly MOA. Like, oh, okay, so we're going to put Signet of Fire and Signet of Earth in you. So the moment all I've done is white swings, put Signet of Earth on there, you can probably see I immediately did this right here. So what I did is I did Dragon's Tooth and then I did Phoenix last. The reason why I did Phoenix last is it's a longer cooldown, it's a shorter duration burn, and I want those stacks happening last. So all those done in a certain order is going to give me a lot of damage really, really quickly with all this purple damage which is burning. You can see this added up right here. So the last thing we have, which is another nasty ability a lot of people take for granted, is this one here. It's called Flame Wall. It's a ground target one, so you can walk around with it queued up like this. Like, it doesn't have a real long range. It puts a little firewall on the ground, right? And you can see it says, oh, burning 3 3/4 of a second, 1400 damage, 5 targets, lasts for 8 seconds. Little combo field fire. Now, I don't deal with the combo field. Leave these a scar on the ground when you're done with it. Most people, when they see these kinds of things, it's like, oh, that doesn't really matter. Well, as you can start to tell, every single one of these abilities has the burning condition on it. Burning 4.5 seconds, burning 15 seconds, burning 9 seconds, burning, and then you have bleeds. And when I switch later on to my Earth build, you'll see there's also bleeds I can put in there with this, along with some immunity, some reflect against ranger projectiles, and also a blind ability I can do on demand. But we'll just stick with fire for right now and just talk about that. And we could talk about this might popping well, which just lasts 15 seconds, which is really nasty when you come out of Earth. So this Flame Wall one, which a lot of people don't really think is interesting, is so concentrated and does so much damage so quickly. I will a lot of times put that on the target right after rooting them first. And let's just find something over here. Well, we'll just do this other mower here. Poor little mower. I'll just do it this way. So, here's all the damage on that right there, right? 1600, 1600, 1900, 2400, it just keeps building 3200. The thing is dead by the time you got through that. In PvP, when you put this down on top of someone who's in a down state, it'll kill them. So a lot of times in PvP, someone's down the ground, they're doing their abilities, they're trying to get in range, and you could just go, oh, say this bush here is a down target. You nuke them, they're down, their allies are coming, they're thinking about doing their abilities, you can just throw this on them, and throw a signal and just run off, and that'll kill them. The other thing that's interesting about this flame wall ability is people don't like the vertical walls. When they see them, they act differently. The Guardian has one too. You'll see with my Guardian healing build, if you play Guardian staff, they have one that like knocks people back. You bounce into it like an invisible barrier. Most people don't find this thing a threat. They're like, oh, it's some stupid flame wall. I'm not going to run through that. The problem is you're using it as an additional dot right on top of people. Now, if you've played single player PvP, you'll see that some of these abilities are kind of hidden. You don't really know that they're happening to you. So if you go like this, most people don't really see this happening to them, right? When that goes off and that goes off there, they don't even know that's happening to them. They're like, oh, okay, I guess I'm not really being hit by 118 damage. That's not that big of a deal. So I haven't cast any abilities, just except for these two signets. So just casting these two signet did all that damage there. Let's try it on the sand line here, without using his, without using the signets. He had enough help for that to last a while. You can see we all got to 5,928 tick, 4,177 tick. So let's talk about how fast the ticks actually are. So we'll just use this River Drake for this. This is the thing about Fire Condition I think is just so fun. This time, instead of watching down here and looking at the combat log, check out up here where the River Drake is, right? Watch for the, I'm just going to do there's 1 stack of burning, 3 stacks of burning, 4, 3, 4, 3, 5, 6, 7, 6. So that's, nothing's on cooldown, just casting that unmolested. These things started stacking up pretty quickly. Already got to 1,800, 2,200, 2,100, 2,200, 2,700. There's one situation here where the tick counter dropped from 6 to 5, and then we went back up to 6 again because Flame Strike is happening so quickly. So there's one tiny little gap in there. Now, the thing about that that works really well is I don't need to be standing still. So I can be running around and doing all this kind of stuff while that's going on. That's just amazing. So most of the time, if you got someone... And remember, if I get in real trouble, I can just root them in place. So they're going to be rooted in place, just taking all that damage, and I haven't used any other major cooldowns or anything. You can even see the bleed damage there. See the bleed damage for 1,000? That's from the Signet, and then the fire damage. So even with doing nothing special, these are just mobs. I'm not... Killing mobs is easy. I'm just using this for examples to talk about the abilities. Even with just using the Signets you have at your disposal and using the default attack, you can take care of business with most situations in group fights in PvP. Now, if someone's going to get in your face, right, or you got a big fight on a node, you really want to do a lot of damage, you want to burst someone down really, really quickly, you are going to use those abilities much faster. The good thing is all the other ones are still available once you're done doing that rotation, and once that rotation is done, 2 or 3 of them are going to come up really quickly. So one of them's going to come up really, really quickly is the Dragon's Tooth. 4 seconds after you put the full rotation on somebody, right? And you have flexibility to change that rotation midstream. It doesn't even have to go in a certain order. You can just do it any way you want. You might have someone all over you like the plague, like a warrior might be whirlwinding with an axe build, and you know they're going to hit really hard. You don't have time to place a flame wall, but you have time to put these 2 at your feet and root them in place and put this, and that's all you can get off, or you got a dodge roll. Even just doing that, you're going to be able to take care of things pretty quickly. So let's say with a PvP situation, this thing's coming at you. So Flame Signet. That's usually what happens. There's a video I'll put at the bottom of this posting that shows how I burned a Guardian down in like 2 or 3 seconds. He didn't even know what happened to him. When someone is unaware, or they're in a group fight, and they're thinking about a Necro or a Revenant or whatever a meta build is in their face, and you're on the perimeter, and you're doing this kind of damage to entire groups, they don't understand. No one is playing Elementalist Scepter Focus. The thing about it that's really fun is that this is an extremely survivable build that you can play in PvE forever. And the survivability on the Earth side means you can't be crit, and we'll talk about that next. So let's just shift over from the fire side over to the Earth side. So when you're playing Elementalist, you see down here you have these different, you can go to Air Attunement or Earth Attunement or Water Attunement. The only ones I ever use is Fire and Earth. And the reason for that is this. Let's go over to Earth, which I have a keybind for. The moment I switch into Earth, I am gaining might and I'm gaining protection. Now this is the real interesting part here. Yes, I can cast Earth spells. This one, you cannot be critically hit while attuned to Earth. So I can't, now you can start to see how this would work. So you got someone, you start nuking them, you do your rotation on them, maybe they dodge rolled one of the abilities, they charged you, they stunned you, they feared you. You've got some bleeds on them, or you got some fire burning on them, but now they're in your face. And you know what they're going to do? They're going to try to burst you down. So just by switching into Earth stance, you can still protect yourself in some interesting ways because there's some very cool defensive abilities in Earth. Now, one of them is immunity, called Obsidian Flesh. It only lasts 3 seconds. It confuses the devil out of people. It's a great thing to use and get in someone's face after you apply the dot sim and make them waste all their cooldowns trying to stun you and knock you down and all that kind of business. So we can let these guys hit me for a few minutes here. So I'm not going to do anything. Okay, so this is what the immunity looks like here. It looks like you're channeling something at them, like that. And they don't. When you're fighting a player, they don't really understand what's happened to you. So we've got these guys here in our face. Let's go over here and kill them all. Get them all close. That's all the way up to 5,800 on him. So the thing about Earth that's really, really useful is you think of Earth as a defensive stance, like if you're a warrior from WoW. You're not going into Earth to do offense. You're going to go into Earth to prevent yourself from being crit, right? You're also going to be able to use this magnetic wave, which is it's a projectile reflect. Sorry, I was doping it out for a second. It will cripple someone, reduce their movement speed, but you don't use it to target someone. You use it to protect yourself against a ranger who's bursting you, right? So a lot of the ranger abilities are like bum, 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 shoot really, really quickly. That works really great too. Another thing you can do here is this Dust Devil, which is an outgoing blindness. People can't really see that. It's so fast. They don't realize it in a big confusing battle that you just blinded them. I've a lot of times had situations where I'm trying to get away. I've been snared. Someone's really, I've got my dots on them. I'm taking a lot of damage. I don't have the signal available. Maybe I've already blown my heal. I've used my immunity, and they're not a projectile class. I'll even throw a blind on them real quick just to get myself back in the fire and then just burst stuff down. So the thing I always really like about the Earth stance is this is your stay alive while people are getting all over you. They think you're a fragile little elementalist. It has some defensive abilities, such as this ability right here, which is called Rock Barrier. So this will give you 30 seconds of increased toughness. It's also usable as a bleed projectile ability. It looks like this, right? So it looks like you're throwing rocks at the target. That doesn't do a lot of damage, right? But what it does do is stacks up bleeds. So you can see down here in the lower camera corner, the bleeds just by themselves are getting up to 1,600 and 2,300 damage pretty quickly, and I didn't take any damage, and I was never really crit. So you don't really want to run around. You're not going to kill someone quickly in the Earth stance. What you're going to use Earth stance for is you can continue to have decent sustained damage if things have gone wrong. So let's do this. We're going to blow all these cooldowns here and this signet, and we're going to start nuking this guy. So say we're going to fight here. We have no cooldown there with the root. This one's come back up. Let's go to Earth stance. Yeah, he died too quickly. Say I have nothing available, and you just need to do some damage or something. So you can start applying bleeds on someone right here like this, right? Maybe your signet will come back up like it has here, so now you have both bleeding and fire happening simultaneously. You can make yourself immune, excuse me. So in this situation, you can see all these purple numbers. This is burning and bleeding. So 1,600 and 1,500, you're talking like 3K, 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 3K. That adds up really, really quickly. But like I said originally, you aren't really in the Earth stance to burst anyone down. It's more of a survivability situation. Now in PvE, and I'll post some roaming videos that are pretty interesting, the Glyph of Elements, the last one, is great for creating a temporary pet that allows you to, that will tank for you. This is a little veteran land shark. We all know how annoying they are, right? So while the bleeds up here, you can see this is the bleeding, this is the burning, and while I'm just nuking him with regular moves, not doing anything special, the signet's back up. He didn't even attack me. So if you're fighting elites and trying to get the little loot boxes from them, you can stack that burning up 4,900, 5,000, 3,700, 4,500 burning really, really quickly, and this silly elemental will automatically attack anything that you're dealing with. The duration isn't the longest in the whole world. It's not a perma-pet. It lasts 2 minutes though. Believe me, I think the duration is 2 minutes. Let's try it on this Hydra. The problem with the Hydra is he's going to do a double nuke. 1, 2, That's a double nuke, and sometimes it charges. So the whole scepter up in the air thing is constantly applying dots. Signet again. And you can see the Earth Elementalist is over there kind of sort of tanking. He's coming over and bothering me every now and then, but he's not really doing a lot of damage. And whatever's left alive, you switch targets. He's going to run over there and punch it. I mean, he hits it for an innervating punch or something, which will immobilize and cripple. And you have an ability you can hit for him called Stomp. It'll go like this. He's not really an offensive weapon. It's great in PvE. Sometimes I'll use this in PvP because people don't understand what you're doing. It's just not something that people would ever do. And one of the biggest tactics you'll see that I use a lot is I will do things that other people don't do, so you don't really know how to fight it. So you don't really have any, why is this Earth Elemental on me? That's certainly not going to kill me. No, it's not going to. What it is going to do is get in the way of targeting and cause problems for you. It's also going to allow me to point blank area effectively on demand. All right, so that's pretty much the rundown of this. Let's go into the real particulars. Besides this gear, which you have options on, let's take a look at the actual build. So I'm running, it's Fire, Earth, obviously, and Arcane. Arcane's an interesting choice, but let's go through every single one of these. We'll go back over to the this house over here where no one will bother us. The roof of this shack should work just fine. Okay. All right, let's get that back open again. So, in Fire, gain power while fighting attunement. Okay, great. So, in you're going to gain power while you're in the Fire stance. If you switch to Earth stance, that drops down by 1300. Now, you do get bonuses like protection and might increasing as you switch stances. So sometimes when you switch back into Fire, you will see this jumps up to 1570 because this might increase. So that's great. Now this first section here is Burning Precision. Burning that you inflict means your conditions. Has increased duration. That's what you saw on the character sheet earlier. Your critical hits gain a chance to inflict burning, which will add additional burning stacks. In this case, it's 4.5. I've always been surprised at how I tried this once with almost a really nasty crit build, but not as much condition damage, and it just wasn't as reliable. I'd rather have consistent get to 3K, 4K, 5K happening in 4 seconds than maybe sort of adding little short 4.5 second burning durations in between. You don't crit with this build, as you saw earlier, so the crit is not what this is about. A lot of people in PvP are running, where's our crit number? Here it is, only 13% chance to crit. That's because your dots aren't going to crit anyway. So now these other ones you could do, this gains a fire aura when an ally picks up a conjured weapon. I don't use the conjured weapon signet, so it doesn't benefit me, which would be someone using this fire eruption. I have seen like 3 times in the last 7 years someone use that ability, so that one's not very useful to me, that's why I didn't choose it. This one here is using a cantrip. So cantrips would be some of these other slots. You could pick things in here that are cantrips. I don't ever use cantrips. I always use glyphs. So these are cantrips here. Like these are ones, like most of the other trees, that say, oh, if you use a cantrip, it gets additional effect. So those aren't really going to apply to us at all. So we use this one. So if we crit, hey, an extra little burn, that's fine. This one's interesting. So the moment you attune to fire, so you're in a fight, you're in the Earth stance, you run around, you're fighting a bunch of people, you killed someone, and someone jumps you, and you're like, oh, let me get back to fire. And if someone's right on top of you, and you're like, oh, I gotta blow this person up, we can't have this. As soon as you switch to this tiny little sunspot will go off. Now, here, read what it does. It's a 3-second fire aura. You're enveloped in a fiery shield that burns foes, grants might each time you're struck with a 1-second cooldown. So if someone comes up to you and starts channeling melee moves on you, they're giving you might, which you don't want to have happen anyway, but you don't mind having the might. But it's another 2 stacks of burning for 4,700 damage, and it's also in a radius. It hits up to 5 people. That's a lot of damage in a short amount of time. That's like 1,200 damage. So just playing normally and not doing anything special, this is going to be going off. You'd be surprised how situations where 2 people are trying to burst you down and you're in Earth and you blew everything you could to stay alive, but you want to turn around and do your last final fight and just drop the bomb on them, everything's back up, and you know they're probably going to kill you. I've had this kill people. This next one is Burning Rage Sunspot, which is this one here. When you switch back to fire, inflicts burning. Its radius is increased, so now the radius is 60. Your condition damage is increased. It goes up to 45, 95. So by default, it's, as you can see, it's turned blue here. By default, it doesn't do that. So if it was this would make it go down to Um, does it show the number? No, it doesn't. So this also gives you a general passive plus 180 condition damage, which will show up in your character sheet. Now the other two here, fire auras have increased duration. That's okay. I'm picking up my condition increases is more important to me than an aura. So in this situation, you don't really have any auras but this one, which is Fire Shield, which I really didn't talk about. I'm going to talk about it in a minute. But it's not worth it to have an aura increase. You'd rather have this burning going off while you're just switching to your scepter. The last one here is while above the might threshold, increased power bonuses are doubled when attuned to fire. If you were doing some kind of very, very bursty oriented build, but you're using fire, which is condition oriented, so it doesn't make any sense. So if there was a, maybe in Weaver or something, there's something you could do that's burst oriented that might benefit that. So the fire weapon skills gain reduced recharge, do more damage to burning foes, increase 10% more damage, charge reduced by 20%. That's why these things are coming up more often. You're going to do more damage. That means more damage to your conditions as well. This one here is quite interesting. Gain might for using any skill while attuned to fire. So even just doing this fire aura, it should gain might. Let's just do one of these other abilities real quick. Now maybe it's just showing up in the character. Let's see how that looks here. Where is our might number? Maybe it's not showing up. Okay. Yeah. So the other part of it, when leaving fire attunement or successfully completing a fire overload, which doesn't matter because you're not playing Reaver, unleash a flame explosion, a lot like that. So that's this really quick explosion that happens. Let's read what that actually does. So after a short delay, consume might on yourself, release a torrent of flame, burning applied, another 3 seconds, granted might, maximum strike damage is increased, minimum strike damage, maximum might removed. Pretty interesting. The other two I always found were kind of odd. Fire fields, well, you only have one fire field. So it isn't really beneficial to have one of your smallest dots be extended. So I never thought that one was worthwhile picking up. The blindness when you burn, that's interesting. I tried it one time, but it's this 8-second interval that makes it kind of awkward. It's like, yeah, someone's killing me, and over the 8 seconds, I'll blind them once, but they might dodge roll it. So it's kind of a strange one. It doesn't really... So this, to me, I thought worked really well, because what this is doing is going conditions, power, when you switch to fire, more condition, more damage, more burning, damage increase, recharge, reduce, and when you're switching stances, gaining might. So all these things here mean you're going to do more damage, which is your main thing. Let's go to the Earth Tree. So this one here, gain damage reduction while attuned to Earth. So that's just, we talked about that earlier. The moment you were able to cast Earth Attunement, you also have this cannot be critically hit, which is this one way down here. The second one here is bleeding you inflict has increased duration, deal increased damage to bleeding foes. So once someone's bleeding from maybe the Signet, this other bleed from this one here, Rock Bearer, will do more damage. The other two, excuse me, over here. This one here is kind of weird. This is a cantrip one, so we don't use any cantrips, so we don't need that. Auras you grant to allies also grant protection. I don't want to sound selfish, but I'm not granting allies protection or auras, so that doesn't make any difference. This Earth and Blast one is quite interesting. Damage crippled nearby foes when attuning to Earth. When you have someone on you and they're meleeing you and killing you, most of the time I found that I'm switching to Earth in PvP when someone's on top of me, and sometimes it's multiple people on top of you because you're kind of keeping a good distance. Your positioning is really strong. It also means you cannot be critical hit. This ability can't critical hit. So this will snare people around you once you attune to Earth. If someone charges you, slaps you down, stuns you, they're playing a Berserker build or something like that, you're like, oh no, I'm half health, my healing signet's down, I don't have a dodge roll, I'm snared. The moment you switch to Earth and get ready to start doing what you can to defend yourself, this is going to reduce their movement speed. So I have found situations where someone crippled me, I dodge rolled, and then hit this, and it crippled them, and they're 6 feet away from me, and they can't touch me, and they're trying to melee me. It drives them batty. So this next one is gain condition damage based on your toughness. So this is one of the reasons, besides the actual general effect of toughness, is picking up this set here with toughness and vitality in it. More health, more protection from damage. So this one here has nothing to do with which stance you're in. So you're just going to gain condition damage based on your toughness, inflict bleeding when you immobilize a foe. So this is going to be your mobilization here. It also adds a bleed to someone. So you're double dipping on the bleeding in that one. This one here grants stability to nearby allies when attuning to Earth. I didn't pick that one. Stability to allies doesn't really benefit me much. They should be taking care of themselves. I'm not playing a tournament PvP. I'm trying to keep myself alive as a soft class that people don't usually play. And this Earth and Blessing one is about chill, the cripple, immobilization, these are like defensive ones. These abilities that people put on you, I'm interested in burning someone down or entire groups down as fast as possible, as opposed to maybe not being immobilized for an extra 50%. This one's very interesting. When I'm near enemies, I get damage reduction. So earth weapons gain reduced recharge. So all these trees, when you pick the earth tree and the fire tree and everything else, you're always going to get one of these stuck in here. It's usually on this tier here. Damage increased by 10%, recharge reduced by 20%, earth is defensive, damage reduced by 10%, and so this is going to make you more resilient, right? Pretty obvious. This one here is amazing, and I mentioned this earlier. While you're in earth, you can't be critically hit. A lot of people rely on critting, and this build has no crit in it at all, and most of the meta builds that people are running are either massive CC oriented or they're incredible crit burst power oriented. So this is going to help keep you alive. Your other choice would have been remove a condition when struck. That's not going to keep you alive. Someone's going to come up and hit you for 7k and you're going to die. When you can't be crit and they hit you for 2200, you've got an extra 6 seconds to do something about it. You could have picked this significant gain reduced recharge and continue to grant passive bonuses while recharging. Well, let's look at that carefully. So the passive bonus, this is a critical chance. We don't need that. Improves toughness. Yeah, but it's not that much toughness. It's 180. So you're willing to give that up. This last one is the increase in movement speed. Not that big of a deal. Now, this last one, there's some flexibility here, but I have found with extensive playtesting and single-player PvP to be structured PvP, Arcane works really well, even though I'm not using any Arcane spells at all. There's only one spell in Arcane and one spell in Water that I suggest you even touch if you ever have to attune to it for some reason. So some of these are going to be like, gain might when you switch attunements. You'll see that we go to fire, we're gaining might. That's from this down here, right? Let's go to water, you're gaining some more might. You go to air, you're gaining 4 stacks of might. Go back to earth, you're gaining more might. So a lot of these switches of stances are passives that are being granted due to something like that. So this is 9 seconds of might, but guess what? More power, more condition damage. So even playing normally, switching between fire, doing all your damage, dotting someone up, blowing up an entire area, blowing your sickness. Go, oh no, someone's on top of you, they're trying to kill me, let me get out of here. And you switch to earth to protect yourself, you're going to be gaining might. So you're continually powerful when you're switching both stances. This one's here. Your critical strikes have a chance to inflict a condition based on your attunement. Now, we aren't crit oriented, but if there is a crit, 33%, which is a third of the time, you're going to get this right here. So when you're in fire stance, you get another 2.25 second 862 damage burn. If you're in earth stance, you get 6.5 seconds 707 damage bleed. That's just free damage. You didn't do anything. So you're already going to be in these two stances. It's just more extra damage. And when you're talking about something that's adding a little 600 here and a little 300 here, and it's building and duplicating and adding additively, just look over here to the left, right? All these numbers, see how they increase. They just get larger and larger. Burning 2400, burning 2700, burning 3200, burning 3600, burning 3900, burning 4193, burning 4690. This is just from Flame Strike being casted repeatedly. So that's really, if one of those happened to crit, it would do more damage. Now you can see these all say hit, 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 hit. None of them are saying critical hit. You see how there's one critical hit. So you're not relying on this, but if it does happen, it does help a little bit. It'll boost the damage up pretty quickly. The COS is at 2500 and went to 3400. So the next tick really takes advantage of that. This one here is interesting. If you happen to crit while you're in earth stance, you get additional protection, which reduces damage on you by 33%. That's pretty nice. We're almost done wrapping this up. So the last 3 ones here in the arcane tree this is cast a lesser block attacks with an energy shield. If it blocks 3 attacks, it explodes. So this is something interesting. When you get to a certain health threshold, which in this case is half, this shield will automatically go off, and then it will block 3 attacks, and then it will explode. It's great. If you ever play World of Warcraft and use any kind of damage tracker or scrolling combat text, a lot of times you can set alerts like, hey, you cast execute or whatever, you're playing a warrior. If you get to a certain health level, it's nice to see this thing go off to let you know that you're helpless up. Let's just go ahead and let this thing beat on this a little bit. May take a while. Let's get some more than one guy. So you'll see it go off and it'll make a loud noise and a big bubble will go around. Almost there, 13k. There it is. So when that goes off, you know, like, listen, I'm going to get killed if I'm not careful. So it's really nice in PvP because that can be going off at a moment's notice when you're low on health and you don't even realize it's happened to you. And it's really great to wake you up and let you know, listen, you better start playing defensively or you're going to die. So that's something I found to be super, super useful for Arcane. Let's go back to look at the abilities here. So it's just called Lesser Arcane Shield. You saw how it went off here. You could probably look in the combat log and track it down and see where it is. Where did it go? It says it's about going off when I switched stances. You saw that earlier. Let's see here. Bite. Earth and Blast. Glyph of Harmony. Me healing myself. I don't see it in the combat log unless it's just buried away somewhere. For me personally, the reason why I like it, like I said before, is when this goes off, it's kind of like waking you up to listen, stop DPSing and start playing defensively because you're half health. So this one here, gain concentration on your attunements, gain reduced recharge. So concentration plus 180, recharge reduced 15%. So this means how long it takes to switch between the different stances. So you can see this situation, not in combat, it's very short. In combat, it's a little longer. The other element to this that's kind of interesting is this gain concentration. So concentration is down here. Here you go. Increases your boon duration. So remember earlier how we were switching stances and we're getting a boon, and they last a lot longer now. So you wouldn't think that matters much, but this is all going off in the background when you're playing normally. This isn't something that you're having to click a button to cast. You're just juggling basically kind of 2 sets of cooldowns, so that's really, really useful. I love things that are happening in the background that help benefit me to make you stronger while you're focusing on positioning and what you're doing next, and you can think tactically as opposed to wondering about something's procced yet or should I do it now because it's procced. This is just passive, making you stronger, more offense and more defense. Lastly, deal increased damage for each boon on you. So there are situations in structured PvP where, hey, you've given yourself 2 boons, or you decided to switch to the stance and build a heal on yourself. And then you need to go back into another stance and, start, reflecting projectiles in the earth, and you're going to go back into fire, and then you're going to nuke someone, right? And all that stuff is going to happen in the background. So basically what this is doing, you're going to do more damage for each boon on you. In fact, there have been situations when I played in a battleground where I'm like, okay, here comes someone up here. I'm going to go ahead and put my toughness buff on myself. I'm going to summon my earth elemental. They'll have no idea what's going on. I'm going to blow this moe up, right? The moment I switch into fire stance, you can see that down with my bar down here, this might stack built up almost immediately. In fact, we'll just go ahead and put it on this guy too when we got the stacks. You can see the signet's already up here. He's dead already. So this is 14 stacks of might. I'm not really doing anything. So this is pushing the power up by just playing normally. And the signets are coming back up pretty quickly too. So this cooldown is 25, this one's only 15. 15 is pretty short. That's almost the same amount of time to put Phoenix on something. So that's basically the build. That's basically the gear. That's basically how I play it. I did mention earlier there's 2 abilities we use in water attunement. You may have picked up on that. One of them is everything in water is going to be useless to you except this one here. This one here. This is a ground target one that will heal you. Now, when you switch into water, this is going to give you a little bit, the Glyph of Harmony changes, the elemental changes, all these things change, right? But this one right here, you can heal allies or yourself. It also gives you this little bit of regeneration. So it's going to do an upfront heal, and it's going to do regeneration afterwards. It'll affect 5 allies. So I've had situations where you'll see in one of my videos where I'm almost dead, my signet is down, I summon a water elemental, use the water elemental's ability, and then cast this on myself right on top of myself. That's not going to show up here at all because I'm not damaged. So what I could do is get damaged and show it to you, but you can see it in one of the videos. I'll link it in the article. Last one is air. Air has some interesting things you can do. I don't ever use it anymore. It just doesn't really come into handy. The knockdown is interesting. This one here, you can knock things down if you want to, but you're doing that to knock someone off a cliff to get them off you. You're almost dead. This one here, most people have figured out this is a projectile blocker. Most people, when they see something big like this, like Guardians have abilities that are like this kind of stuff, they know what it is and they just stop using abilities when they see you do that. You're wasting time not killing someone. You really are a DPS class. You're not a support class. You're not supposed to be running around blocking projectiles for the team. You're just going to do things that are going to protect yourself, and blocking projectiles for yourself looks like this, and no one can even tell it did it. This is just magnetic wave. So that's what you want. No one even knows you have that on you. And of course, if you're new, you're going to run around doing this, and people don't know what you're doing. They have no idea what all this black junk smoke coming off you is while that's happening. And if you're blinding people, they don't even see that. And when you go back to fire, you're doing this. You can't really tell what your casting is, which spell you're casting, what you're doing. It's just confusing. They can't tell what's going on with what you're doing. Everyone else has very advertised abilities that they use. All right, I'll wrap that up. That's basically the kind of in-depth overview of this build. There's a number of battleground maps, and I'll do some PvE roaming as well, so you can see how this thing plays out. I think, in summary, the thing I love most about this build is that you're delivering high levels of condition damage, and then you're focusing on positioning and movement, not worrying about whether something's come up off a cooldown, because your default attack is going to constantly keep all those burning abilities going all the time. So it's very fun to juggle your outsmarting the enemy, using geometry, where you are, the situation at hand, and pretty short cooldowns on the abilities, and a lot of area effect damage. And you're able to burst things down extremely quickly with much less cooldowns. All right, that's it for now. We'll talk to you later. See ya.